Now, have you ever had this type of conversation before? My business seems to be stagnant. I'm battling to get these leads. I don't have enough stock. Everyone around me seems to be thriving, and I seem to be taking, well, I'm not sure what I'm taking. I seem to be stuck in the mud. So, this was a conversation that I had with one of my agents. And this particular conversation really started to build this particular session. So, in the session, this is real estate tips and tricks where I have conversations or get questions from agents. And through those questions, these sessions are actually formed. Now, this conversation was all about my business, and to put it into brackets, is hitting a bit of a plateau, or my business, in fact, hasn't even taken off the ground. Something's happened. I went on leave, or we had some form of change in our structures. How do we start getting ourselves going again? And that's really where I started with this particular session. Now, I wanted to go on a very different path. My conversation with this particular agent was all about, well, we need to make sure that we get into lead generation. We need to make sure most people are aware of your business, aware of your value proposition. And it's something that you've heard on an ongoing basis. And through that particular conversation, at the end of it, my agent was like, oh, that's fantastic. Thank you, Stuart. You really have helped and guided me to go forward. And I did a follow-up 2 days later just to say, hey, how's things going? And it was almost like she had forgotten the conversation. You see, what happened with that conversation, it was a lot of motivation, it was a lot of drive, it was a lot of ideas, but that's where it stopped. And that then got me thinking, how do I actually, when I have these type of conversations with individuals, how do I take it to a point that you don't leave a session thinking, that was fantastic, I don't know where to start? And that got me thinking, how do I make a session where I can share something with you, but then you know what to do thereafter? And it was from that that I started to do my research. Now, I've mentioned before, where do I do my research? Well, I actually look outside of the real estate industry. I've looked at the pharmaceutical industry. I've looked at the motor industry. And in this particular case, I started looking at the entertainment industry. And the reason why I looked at the entertainment industry, well, we know that entertainers become celebrities. And when a celebrity says that they're going to do something, whether in a new movie or at a play or at a concert, they have this audience that gets attracted to them. And that starts building up their particular business. Now, if I look in the real estate game, well, a real estate agent, in fact, can almost classify themselves as a celebrity. If they're hosting an open day, a show day, they want to go to that particular event and they want people to come. They want as many people to come in. When they list something, they want as many people to say, hey, I'm interested in that particular property. So I started to look into the entertainment industry and started picking up these little ideas of how I could use what they're doing in the entertainment industry for the real estate industry. Because in fact, there's a big crossover and it's very similar. So this is where I started to actually have a look at this industry. And it came up with these three words: eyes leads conversion. Eyes leads conversion. This is what I got to actually see when we're looking in the entertainment industry. Let's say, for instance, there's a new show that's going to be released on, let's say, Netflix. It doesn't just appear on Netflix and just get the conversions. It actually has a bit of a follow-up to it. What you'll start seeing is and this is the first one, the eyes, you'll start seeing a lot of marketing, whether obviously they may have a bigger budget, but they put up billboards. Maybe there's adverts that go out. There could even be print media that goes out. There could be a lot on social media that goes out. In essence, It's creating the eyes on what's to come. It's creating the eyes on this particular series, this particular show that's actually coming up. Now, once you start seeing that, and your eyes are going, hey, this is interesting, I'm learning more about this, it then starts leading on to the leads. You see, once you see it, you want to learn more about it. So what do you actually do? Well, you then go and you Google it, you go and search for it, you go onto the landing pages, you start reading up, you start watching trailers, you start getting excited for this particular product or show, etc. And then you get to the point where ultimately it then becomes live. And that actually is the conversion. People are sitting down and they're watching it. But it doesn't just stop there, because once you've watched it, that individual that has actually watched it, then they talk about it with the people around them. And the people around them suddenly go, oh, what are you talking about? They go back to eyes. They start to search it. They see it. They see the trailer, and then they watch it. And that's this little cycle that goes in the entertainment industry. Now, if you think about that in real estate, it's actually almost the same. Whether you're trying to get a property, whether you're trying to sell a property, whether you're trying to find a buyer, that little circle is almost the same. So I took that entertainment industry, and that was a very basic example, and I started to break it down using that little formula of eyes, leads, as well as conversions. And ultimately, this is what actually came at the end of this. Now, I've actually shared this with the agent that I was actually working with, and I said to them, hey, by the way, and it was actually done on an email message. I just sent it through. I said, here, I'd like you to go through these particular steps. She came back and she said, that's amazing. I can do that. I now know what to do. And that's what I want to go through for you today. So, going through this particular process to make sure that you can create this level of engagement, you can actually get yourself, and let's talk about it, to the celebrity status. Because one thing that you've got to remember, you are a celebrity. You are in that public domain because you're dealing with the public, and you are helping the public to actually fulfill a certain service. And that is that celebrity status that you need to embrace as you're going through. So let's talk about that very first part, which is the eyes. You see, the eyes is all about how do you get seen? It's the awareness of going out there. Now, in real estate, we tend to rely on existing listings that we've put on tags sometimes about just listed or for sale or what's happening in the actual area. We tend to rely on those for sale boards at that one property and hoping that everybody in the area has actually seen that property and will make contact with you. You see, we rely on something that's not in our control. And that's where we actually are standing back and saying, hey, now we're stuck in the mud, or we've hit this plateau. I cannot get my business off the ground because we're relying on areas that's outside of our control. So what we've got to do is we've actually got to put it into our control. And to do it in control, I want you to think like a celebrity. I want you to talk about it. I want people to know you as the individual. I want people to be so aware of you that when you're walking down the street, they know you by name. How do you get to that? Well, there's a very simple formula, and it actually works with this formula of 5. And the reason why it's 5 is because you've got 5 fingers, unless you've had one cut off, but you've got 5 fingers, and 4 of them are basically the ones that's going to hold on to everything. And these 4, they can be quite creative. You've got to think of 4 ways that is creative enough that, well, it's just going to get a bit of a grip. And then there's got to be that one. This is the thumb, the one that holds on so tight that keeps that client for life. Now, I know for many people, when I said that to my client for the first time, she went, Stuart, straight over my head. I have no idea what you're talking about. So let's give you some examples. 5 ways to actually get seen. It could be something where you've actually created maybe a live. And when I talk live, I'm talking about physically going live. This is picking up your phone or going on a camera, going on to any social media and going live and talking about the market instead of just an email that's going out or just a WhatsApp or a message that's going out, actually going live. Doing that on a persistent basis and consistent basis, so it almost becomes this TV show, something where people will tune in at a certain time to actually watch about it. This becomes your live trailers. If you're talking about the markets, if you're talking about your properties, if you're talking about the interest rates, if you're talking about something, create something of the awareness. People want to see that authentic nature about yourself. Another method could be, well, instead of just having that for sale board out there, I know most people say, but print media, it's not really, well, print media is still around. You see, print media is not like a social media post where you see it, and as soon as you scroll past, you cannot find it again. Print media is something that actually has a bit of life to it. It's something that you can actually maybe even create it to a level where it gets onto a little magnet and it gets stuck onto the actual fridge. Print media has such a history about it that people, as much as they kind of get irritated, they actually do like it. So you can create a flyer, a brochure, maybe it's a fridge calendar, something that has your picture, something that people will see on an ongoing basis. I even had, and this I thought was absolutely crazy, I even had an agent who took one of your licensed disc holders that goes in your car and actually had their face printed on it with a little comment. If you're looking at buying or selling property, contact me with their telephone number. And they used to hand out these. I thought that was absolutely crazy. And they said, but Stuart, people are in their cars so often. And most of the time, the person that's driving already knows it's there. They said the best part is it's the people in the passenger seats that get to see it on an ongoing basis. And that's where they start picking up the referral connections from those particular devices. So that's just a crazy idea that I will actually share with you. So you've got to make sure that you get that awareness. It could even be something where you're standing at shopping centers, standing in public areas where you're just introducing yourself to people, branding your car, having something that makes you stand out when you're in that community environment. You see, what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to create as many eyes on you as possible. But Stuart, what's the thumb? What's the one that holds on tight? Well, the thumb, the one that holds on tight, is the activity that you do that you actually get the personal details of that person. You see, the other ones are more of awareness building. 4 different awareness building activities that you'll do on a daily basis to get all these eyes on you. And it's like a billboard on the side of the road. You drive past, you see it, and you carry on driving. But it stays in the back of your head. But that one where you actually get their details, it could be something, hey, by the way, we're talking about giving away a free ebook on how to XYZ of your home. In order to do this, capture in your details. You see, ultimately, this is going to start to get that thumb, that holding on to something. What is that one awareness building activity where you can get their contact details? And they want to give you their contact details and they want you to keep the conversation going. So that's the first, is the eyes. Having 4 different methods that just builds the awareness. But there must be the awareness of the brand, which is your face, your voice, your transparency, your authentic nature, having that on an ongoing basis. And that one awareness that gets that solid grip on that client where you get their details so that you can continue the conversation, not in a spamming method, but on a continual basis. So that's the first one, which is eyes and awareness. The second is leads. Now, once people have seen you on a social media post, or maybe on a particular flyer, or maybe they've captured particular details. It needs to go into that second phase, which is leads. Now, most people think leads are, well, that's all I need. I just need to generate leads. But the problem with just generating leads is sometimes those leads are cold leads. Maybe they're not even qualified leads. So we actually don't call them just leads. We call them lead inquiries. You see, these are inquiries that you've got to then do something with it. Now, where do you get these lead inquiries? Well, when you're actually going out and you're doing your live posts or your flyers that are going out with something that's great and landing on the actual fridge, or maybe that license disc holder on the actual car itself, you need to make sure that they've got a place where they can go to research a little bit more. You see, just like I shared the example, driving on the highway, seeing a billboard, hey, let me Google it. That goes into a page, a landing source, where you can then start to ask questions to qualify them to see, are they a buyer? Are they a seller? Are they an investor? Are they maybe a vendor that's just interested in doing some work with you? Maybe it's even friends and family. They just want to know, hey, are you still selling properties? Having that landing page where you can then start to qualify those particular leads that's coming in starts to generate these leads that you can start working with and ultimately taking you through to that final step, which is the conversion. Now, when we go back to these leads, you need to make sure that these leads that come in, you start to categorize them. That's through that qualification process so that you can understand them better. You see, just having leads coming in on an ongoing basis is great. But if you're having a conversation with someone that wants to sell their home and you're going, well, are you interested in sponsoring a show day for me? You can see that that conversation is going to get lost. So we need to qualify those leads. Now, when you're doing your lead qualifier, I just shared with you some examples of different categories that you can put them into. And through those qualifying questions, they'll go into these different pockets. So for instance, buyers, someone that's interested in particular buying, a seller, someone who's looking at selling, investors, someone who wants to purchase a multitude of properties for whatever investment purpose. Your vendors, people that want to do business with you. These are electricians, plumbers, attorneys, bond originators, etc. You want to put them into that category, but you also want to create a category for friends, for family, people that you already know. Past clients could even fall into that category. Why? Because you will treat each one of them in a very different way. Each one of them, you'll have a certain script that when you're pulling up your list and you want to have a conversation with them, well, they're in the buyer category. So I have actually got my conversation leading to buyers, which means if I'm sitting with maybe 10 buyer inquiries, I'll put them all together. And I would just phone them. Why? My mindset is about buyers. I'm having conversations with them. My subconscious mind has been programmed to lead a conversation that's directed towards buyers. If you start going, this one's going to be a buyer and I'm going to phone them, then I'm going to phone a seller, then I'm going to phone a vendor, then I'm going to phone two more buyers, and I'm going to phone a seller thereafter, jumping all over, you'll start to confuse your conversations. So having them in these categories, you then just say, I'm batching this lot and I'm going to phone them as I go forward. But if you don't put them into categories, you've got to start those conversations with, hey, thank you for sending me your lead. So what are you looking for? You're asking a question. You don't know what they're looking for. You've actually just taken away your competitive edge in leading that particular conversation. In other words, you've just lost control. So make sure that they go into these types of categories, and then you can start to nurture each one of those lead categories to that conversion that you ultimately want. Now, that conversion is something that, well, it does require a very specific script or a specific tool to help you get them across the line. Now, having conversations with so many agents, I've spoken to agents that have been in the industry for 20 plus years. And when I have those conversations with them, I always ask them, where does your business come from? And a lot of times they say it comes from referrals. It's the repeat business and the referral business that keeps on going. And then I start to dig a little bit deeper and I ask them, well, when you did a sale with them, what did you do? And they said, well, we carried on the conversation. You see, the conversion for them wasn't just getting the commission, putting it into their bank account and saying, thank you so much for the sale and never contacting them again. The conversion, in fact, was an ongoing conversation. In fact, the conversion was converting that particular client to become almost an ambassador for their product. You see, converting clients into a sale, well, it's actually the easiest part. But converting a client to be your ambassador, that requires something different. So when we're talking about conversions, we're not talking about conversions to the sale that happens. We're talking about the conversions to make them an ambassador for you so that when they talk to people around, they start to create more individuals to have eyes on you. And that little circle starts to close. The biggest reason why businesses, and especially the real estate entrepreneurs, hit that plateau is they misunderstand the conversion at the end. They only look at the sale. They only look at the money that lands in their bank accounts. And at the end of that sale, it stops. What you should be doing is looking to see how do you convert them into that ambassador that will stand at the top of the highest building and actually shout your name and share their experience with the people around to create an additional level of eyes on your business, because those eyes will then start to get more interested. When they get more interested, they're going to come into your leads. When they come into your lead funnel, because you're putting it into those qualifying questions, getting them into those different categories, you'll be able to have those conversations with them to help them to close. And once you close, you're actually going to go into that conversion process where you're going to convert more of these particular clients into ambassadors for your business. And when I actually shared this particular model with my clients, this is the one, and she just looked at this and said, I never did the conversions. I always understood a conversion is I'll have a conversion or a conversation with you. You make a sale, my conversion ratio is great. And I said, what happens thereafter? And there was silence. But now when you start looking at that conversion of one client could actually convert into 10 more or 20 more eyes on your business. And it's those eyes on your business is where the whole process actually starts. Now, I started to look deeper into this as far as, well, how many eyes do we need? How many leads, those lead inquiries, do we need to get to those conversion numbers that will become ambassadors for your business? And the numbers are quite high, but this is what I've actually broken down. And I'm going to use this as examples. If on the eyes category, that's building the awareness, if you can get 2,000 eyes on your business, okay, and we can do that and say it's easier, but double the eyes, you've got 2 eyes, so maybe it's 1,000 individuals, 2,000 individuals. How do we get 2,000 individuals to have eyes on your business? You can think of those 5 methods that goes out. And remember, you could be at one show day and that could actually have 20 people come through. So you've actually got 20 of that number, doing that on an ongoing basis. From 2,000 eyes on your business, generally speaking, roughly 10% of them would actually go into the lead inquiry. Now, lead inquiry, remember, that's just a landing page. They just want to research and know a little bit about you. It might not mean that they fill in a form or anything like that. They just want to know something more about you. There's a level of curiosity that comes into it. So from 2,000 eyes, you're actually going to get roughly 200 people that's actually wanting to know you a little bit deeper. So now that you've got the 200 people that want to know you a little bit deeper, there's roughly 1% of those individuals that will actually go in, complete a particular form, and actually understand exactly what you do. So that's going to lead down to roughly 20 people that you could create as an ambassador. So from 2,000 individuals that have eyes on your business, down to roughly 200 that actually want to learn more about your business, you're going to get roughly 20 that's actually wanting to do business with you. But through this entire journey, you need to make sure that when the eyes are on you, it's a compelling message. It's a compelling message that creates a level of FOMO that they want to learn more. They want to go to a landing page, which means you need to have some form of connection to that landing page. When they get on that landing page, your unique value proposition needs to be clear. They need to understand what you do, why you do it, and how you do it. They need to have that clarity and have the option to put in their actual details so that they can actually then say, right, I'm in the actual database. And at the output of that, you're going to start to see that when people go onto your landing page, there's only going to be that 1%. And you're going to be landing with roughly, or it's actually 10%, you'll be landing with roughly 20 of those people that will actually start to fill in those forms, allowing you to have those conversations where you're now doing the sale, putting them into that little conversion to become an ambassador. And when you start doing that, repeat and referral business starts to become your business. And when that starts to become your business actually feels a lot easier. You're not having to work the midnight oil away. You're actually in a position where you've got this circle of business, this flow of business that starts to come through. But it all starts with the eyes. So just remember this little process. Start with the eyes to build the awareness. Take those eyes into the leads inquiries. Those leads inquiries, make sure that when they do capture, you're qualifying them into different categories: buyers, sellers, investors, vendors, friends, family, past clients, whatever it might be. Put it into those categories so that when you are having those conversations with them, you are a little bit more informed. You understand where they're coming from. And once it goes through, that they are a client, they've converted with you, they've done that sale, you start having that conversation, which is the conversion to becoming your ambassador, talking about your products, talking about you to create more eyes on you, more eyes on your particular business. So this was a very unique session that I wanted to share a step-by-step process that actually, well, it's used in other industries. They create the eyes, they create the awareness. People want to learn more about it. And as soon as that show starts, they are sitting, waiting, and away they go. You see the show and you suddenly go, that was amazing. They become the ambassadors that talks to everybody else. And that was one of the biggest keys. I want you to start creating ambassadors out of your customers. I want them to start raving about you so that it starts leading in. So these are the real estate tips and strategies and tricks that I go out and research. I look at what comes from agents. So you're more than welcome if you pop it in the comments and chat boxes, put in there, what are the questions that you have? What are the tips that you would like to see? And what I will do is research it in relation to a different industry. See what works there. Take that information and almost translate it into the real estate industry so that we get a new perspective. We start thinking outside of the box of real estate, and we start thinking as an entrepreneur that just happens to be in the real estate space. So from myself, Stuart, I want to thank you for that, and I hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to the comments that come in below, and I'm looking forward to our next session.